Hi everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Women in Finance. It's been a really interesting journey, especially over the past 3 episodes where we've learned so much about some of the most incredible women in the financial industry. My next guest is Ayanda Majola, who is the CEO and co-founder of SV Capital. It is an investment company based in Johannesburg that specializes in alternative assets. Ayanda, thank you so much for making time to chat to me.
Thank you so much for having me. That intro was amazing, I must say.
Thank you. It's actually quite interesting because, everyone has like a different story in terms of how they ended up doing the career that they're currently doing. And I'm going to have to also do the same thing where I take you back and ask, how did you get here? Let's take it back to childhood. Like, what career options did you have, and was finance one of those?
Yeah, sure. You're taking me way back. I think, when looking back, I did not know I would be where I am today. Going all the way back to matric when you did have to decide basically what you're going to do with your life. For me, accounting was always an option because I was really, really good with numbers. Like, I enjoyed numbers. I'm really good with numbers. It was always my thing. But at the time, I had a few other options available to me. From my mom's side, she wanted me to be a doctor. And for me, that was a no-go. I was like, I'm not good with blood. I'm very squeamish. That's not going to work, right? So that's completely off the table. And then my maths teacher at the time, she suggested that I be an actuarial scientist. And her reasoning around it was just like, you're really good with numbers. I think, there's something in you that is well placed within the actuarial scientist field. But for me, I just didn't like it, I guess, or it didn't really resonate with me at that point in time. So at that point, really, I decided to go the accounting route. And with that being said, also, I was very fortunate and lucky enough to have an older sister who had gone down the route of studying accounting, doing their articles, and basically living the dream of being a CA, So from a very young age, I knew the practicality of what life after studying would look like, but also I had the role model and I'd say friend along the journey to support, to guide, to basically navigate the entire road with me. So yeah, at that point, I really decided to go the route of accounting. And then I did my undergrad at UJ, University of Johannesburg. And I got my Bcom degree in accounting. Post that, I did my honors in accounting also at UJ. And I think the goal when entering varsity was always to be a chartered accountant. That for me had always been clear, but I was very different to everyone else for some weird reason, where I remember in third year, they had all the big audit firms come in and basically give you a talk, come do your articles with us, we offer this and that. But for me, I think from very early on in varsity, I knew that doing my articles through auditing was not an option. It just didn't excite me. It didn't just give me that passion, that drive, that, yearning to want to go into that route. Then I started researching other options that were available to me, because with doing your honors, to qualify as a chartered accountant, you need to do your articles, right? So I started researching other options, and then my sister, luckily enough, because she's gone through this route, she did her articles through an audit firm. She, at the time, was contracted to Investec, and she did internal or external auditing rather for Investec. And she was like, look, I just found out that Investec has a top program, which is basically training out of public practice. And she said, you should actually try it. Like, don't go the traditional audit route, try the banking route to do your articles. And for me, I really, really like that. I've never been afraid to take risks. I've never been afraid to swim upstream when everyone else is going downstream. And for me, it just sounded perfect because I knew that the goal at the end of the day, yes, it was to become a chartered accountant, but further to that was to start a business and be an entrepreneur down the line. What form, what shape, what that would look like, I really didn't know what that was, but I knew that training or doing my articles through a bank would provide me the best platform, give me industry experience, give me exposure to key players in the sector and industry to propel me to start the business and be at the level I needed to be to start the business. So at that point, I applied to Investec, literally like fourth year, last minute. I didn't know if they would accept me or not. They did. And yeah, I mean, the rest is history. Did my articles at Investec, and the journey ever since really has been amazing, because I think doing articles through a bank allowed me to completely understand investment banking. It gave me about a good amount of investment banking experience, but also it allowed me to understand the integral parts of running a business, and the way the program is structured specifically at Investec is you get to orientate or run or move between divisions within the business. So I did everything from financial reporting, to investor relations, to structured lending. I literally was exposed to everything within the first 3 years of working. So by the time I had decided to move to a multinational, or rather an international bank, that being Deutsche Bank, to join their corporate finance team, at that point for me, I was just adding the last block to the puzzle, which is mergers and acquisitions, exposure to your top 40 companies, meeting executives, structuring, planning, elevating the conversation from rather running the business to more structuring acquisitions, planning for the future of the business, and scaling the business. And post my about 7 years of investment banking experience, when we had decided to start SV Capital in 2017, I felt that I was well placed and ready to take on that role because of everything I had been exposed to through my journey.
So, I mean, let's go back a little bit to your university years. What kind of student were you? Were you like A+, or I'm curious. And the reason I asked that is because, I mean, last week's episode, the guest, she's done really well. She's a CFA, she's got a master's, did whatever. But she was quite frank and honest about the fact that it took her 5 years to get her degree. And that in between, she failed a few subjects, but made it out alive, which I suppose is what matters. What kind of student were you?
To be honest with you, I think I was a very laid-back student, Honestly, between first year and third year at varsity, I barely attended classes. I hope my mom's not watching this because she will have a fit regarding this. But I barely attended classes. My grades were always good. And I think for me, I had the advantage of wanting to go the accounting route. So it wasn't something that was forced upon me. It wasn't something I was doing not out of my own will, So a lot of it came naturally, and I enjoyed what I was doing. But to be honest, I didn't spend a lot of time in class for the first 3 years. And I think I remember one critical point at varsity where I was in third year, second semester, and one of the exams we wrote, I got a horrendous mark, like horrendous.
What is horrendous? Is it like 52?
Like 30%, and I had to write a sub-exam. And then when I saw that, I was like, okay, I must stop this. We need to get ourselves into, running mode. We need to stop playing games. And then from then on, I was stuck in the library studying at all times, So, yeah, I wouldn't say I was like a perfect student. But for me, I've always been the person where I'll do something and I'll give it my 110% and give it my best. But I will not allow myself to not execute to the full, So, yeah, my varsity journey was super interesting, if I could say.
Can I ask, what was the subject?
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. I think it was tax. It was tax. Yes, that's what it was. It was tax. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what were the working years like? I mean, were there any challenges sort of fitting in, like going from university level sort of thinking and that environment to going into an environment where you're in a working world, everybody seems very serious about what they do. What was that like, and the adjustment?
Yeah, the adjustment I think was a bit tricky because, as you correctly highlight, you're moving from a varsity environment where, yes, you are basically running your own life, you're running your own schedule, But you really can do what you want at any point in time. So if you decide not to show up for a class, that's okay. Whereas when you move into the work world, I mean, there were so many rules, unspoken rules even, that were put in place where you weren't really sure about them until probably 2 years later, and you realize that actually we shouldn't be doing that. Like, arriving to work, yes, work starts at 8, you arrive at like 8:30, but everyone's already there having coffee, like small stuff like that, And I think for me, it was a big transition. I'm a girl born and bred in Soweto. My parents born to a teacher. My mom was a teacher. My dad was a marketing associate. So, like, for me, they had always created an environment to say that anything is possible. But the practicality of it, walking into Investec for the first time, I had to go through that journey alone, And the saving grace really of it all was because I had been part of a program through Investec that provided a lot of support, where I often think if you do not have that support in corporate and you're just starting out, it would have been a very difficult journey, just from a program perspective, where they even gave us training in the first week around etiquette, dress etiquette, email etiquette, how you handle yourself in meetings, and so on and so forth. So for me, I was fortunate that I had done it through this very structured environment, and I had to learn a lot in a very short space of time. And I think the colleagues or friends that I acquired through the journey, I mean, we learned from each other. All of us came from very different backgrounds. All of us were very different people, but when we all met, I mean, there was a commonality of just having that burning fire to want to excel, to be the best version of yourself. And I think there was that one nugget of honesty that had come through with everyone, So, and I often think anyone joining corporate now, it's probably a very different conversation, where if you don't have the correct support structure or support systems, or you don't have a person that is advising, training, or helping you navigate the journey, it can be quite daunting and scary, to say the least,
So a lot of the women will talk about, the importance of having mentors along the way, or even if it doesn't have to be a structured sort of schedule with a mentor, if it's someone that you can pick up the phone and they're willing to, hear you out and you can shoot the breeze, so to speak. Did you have anyone like that over the years?
I did. I think along the journey of getting to where I am today, and even in this current day, I mean, I've had multiple mentors, right? And I think for me, I believe that there's a season for each mentor, because they need to help you at a specific point. And once you've gone past that, then another mentor can step in and assist you in a more relevant and helpful way. So, I mean, for me, when thinking back to my days when I started out working, I did have mentors, people that I met at the bank who helped me navigate the entire journey in itself and the environment, the financial sector as a whole, working at a bank, meeting different personalities, how to carry yourself as a woman. At the start of my career, I had aspirations to always climb the corporate ladder. And for me, it was very important to put that out to whoever my mentor is at that point in time. And I always use that as a marker to see if you would be the right mentor. Because if you can open the doors, connect me to people, even sit with me for 30 minutes and just have the conversation, for me, that meant you were invested as much as I was to achieve my goals. And if that could not be done, then it was very simple for me to say, maybe it's not the right timing. But I've also, over the years, had to leverage off my family quite a bit to be my mentors, be it through my sister, as I mentioned quite earlier on in the podcast, where she had gone through the journey of becoming a CA, very different route. She also went through the journey of working in corporate a lot longer than I did. So I utilized that as a means of having a competitive edge, if I could say, but also being able to navigate whatever challenges that may come up along the way. I also leveraged on my brother, who, his speciality is in hedge fund investments. So that also gave me a very different look to how I navigate and grow myself and ensure that my career path continues in the upward trajectory. But on an overall basis, I think for me, mentorship for any young women that are looking to go into the financial sector is very important. But it's very important to make sure that whoever you bring on as a mentor becomes an active mentor. There's nothing more that I hate than someone who says, I'll mentor you, and then it's literally a 5-minute conversation that doesn't add value to anyone's life. Mentorship is a selfless act that doesn't require anything in return. And for young professionals that are looking to grow and basically need assistance with guidance on how to navigate the journey, their career path, finding the right mentor, finding that person who clicks with you, who understands you, who aligns in terms of what you're trying to achieve, and you see the potential that they have access and opportunities that will link to your goals and what you're trying to achieve, for me is very important.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the industry. From the people you're having conversations with, young women, or even just what you're seeing and hearing, do you get the sense that the industry is making a concerted effort to help and push as many women into the industry as possible? Are you seeing a change? And where are we sort of lacking in terms of having those type of women right at the top in the C-suite?
Yeah. Look, I think there is a change in the industry, right? When looking at the fact that the conversation around gender equality, gender parity is quite prevalent at the moment and in the spotlight, we are seeing those conversations being had in multiple ways, in multiple forms, in multiple corners, and that has in itself forced corporate, or the engine in itself, to acknowledge and take the conversation seriously. I think the tides have changed. Opportunities for women are more prevalent. Opportunities for women are more accessible. And you do there's a whiff in the air where everyone is working towards empowering women, giving them opportunities, and making sure that whoever sits in that position is the right candidate. For me, what I've always seen in the industry was putting women in the right positions was always a tick box exercise more than anything else, right? And that really takes away from the potential of getting the best of any woman, because you just put them there because they fulfill something specific, or you're gaining points, or whatever it is. And for me, that was so sad to see, because it took away from the opportunity a business could get from giving the right person the opportunity, and when looking at where we are now, I think the opportunities are endless. We are seeing it through a lot of corporates and entities prioritizing mentoring, growing females in their sectors, in their businesses, but also ensuring that the right person with the right knowledge, expertise, and experience is put into that position. For me, we need to move away from placing women in positions just for the sake of it, and rather look to create an environment where a candidate who has the experience, the knowledge, and has been doing or has the capabilities to execute the role is put in place, and they just happen to be women.
Okay, so in my intro, I mentioned that you're the CEO and co-founder of SV Capital, and you're the one part of the business, but the other part is Kagiso, who is your partner. Let's talk about how SV Capital came about. How did you and Kagiso meet?
Yeah, SV Capital, to be honest with you, when we started the business, it was of a burning passion and ambition to create something different in the investment industry, And I remember back in 2017, when we had the conversation to start SV Capital, literally it was a 5-minute conversation. At the time, Kagiso was at Investec, I was at Deutsche. We met up and we're like, look, we've got very interesting skill sets that if put together, we could create something amazing. Why won't we do it? And at that point, we just decided, we're like, cool, we're doing it, we're starting a business, let's go, you know? And prior to that, just to give you a backstory on how I met Kagiso, I actually met him through Investec. So we both worked at Investec at the same time. And for me, he was, at the start of his career, he had worked in the private banking space. And I was still on the top program. So I was traveling. He was essentially helping me from a banking perspective. And I remember he bailed me out of a very sketchy situation, to say the least. And I remember on the phone, I had a conversation with him and I was like, when I'm back in SA, you and I are going to be friends. And he's like, there's no ways. Like, you tops don't even come say hi to us. There's no ways. Lo and behold, when I was back in the new year, about 4 months later, I found him, I walked into his division, found him, and I went to his desk and I was like, hi, I'm Ayanda, we're friends now. And we've been friends. And I think with starting SV Capital, we were looking to create a product that would not only democratize investments, but make them more accessible to anyone and everyone. You know, when starting the business, the biggest realization I came to was the fact that we have the normal man or woman on the street who has the 500 Rand to start investing. But if you look at traditional investment products, they were not really created to cater to such person, you know, and with that normal man or woman on the street, they were looking for products that not only would give them a good return on their investment, even though it's 500 Rand, but also they were looking for products that they would be able to understand. And I remember when we started the business, we met with a Stockfile in Soweto, and we had pitched this amazing idea for SV Capital, like derivatives, structured products, all the sexy stuff. And when we were done, we were like, this is amazing, guys. You guys have to jump on, like, we are literally going to change the world. And they said to us, they're like, yeah, we hear you guys, but we actually don't know what you mean. Like, I don't know what you're saying to me. It would be great if you guys created a product that I could invest in, that I can see has a direct impact on the socio-economy as a whole, and really helping businesses or people improve their lives through my investment. If you could bring something like that to me, then we would be happy to invest. And we were blown away. We were like, wow, okay. Challenge accepted at that point. And we looked to find a product that was very simple and easy to understand, but generated sufficient returns. And lo and behold, that's how the Cattle Investment, our flagship product, came to life. And we created a cattle investment really just focused on creating value, not just for our investors, but for the partner farmers that we work with. So what we've done is we've fractionalized the ownership of a herd. So very similar to how you'd invest into a unit trust and you own a fraction or a piece of a share, we did the same and applied the same concept where you own a piece of a herd. And when we put this out again to the same Stockfile, they loved it. They absolutely loved it. And for them, because they saw the direct impact, because majority of South Africans in some way or form, you've come across livestock, you understand exactly what it means when someone says they are farming cattle from the start of the process to the end of the process. I mean, the entire investment in itself was so easy to explain, to the point where a 5-year-old would be able to understand exactly what you're doing, you know? And for them, they were just like, we are happy, we will back you guys. And that's how the business started back in 2017. And since then, I mean, we've added quite a few more products to our portfolio, but the ethos and the base of it all for SV Capital is to create alternative investments that are physically asset-backed, be it through cattle, and that's through our cattle investment, or delivery bikes, that's through our delivery bike investment. But the goal really is to reimagine and recreate the investment world where we not only prioritize our investors and give them access to very different, unique, out-of-the-box products, but also we ensure that all our products do have a positive impact on society and people in general.
That's amazing, because I think that's also been one of the problems I've picked up in financial media, where for the longest time we've been having conversations about finance, but then we leave many people out of the conversation. And then suddenly when we realize that we've left them out of the conversation, because we've spent so much time not trying to understand who they are, and because we also have this biased idea that they're not sophisticated enough to be part of this conversation, we then come up with these very haphazard products, and we try and flog them out to the community. And then we wonder why they're not buying into what we've just created. One, because we don't understand the people we're targeting. And for the longest time, we've left them out of the conversation. So again, we all don't seem to understand each other. So that's actually really remarkable what you guys have managed to achieve.
And that's exactly it, right? There's a big part of the market that has been marginalized and left out, not by virtue of the fact that they do not want to invest. They do have the cash flow, but it's by virtue of the way these products are created, the way they're structured. It's just not speaking to the broader market. It's very limited to a limited group of people who can afford the 100,000 minimum investment, or they understand what derivatives mean and how derivatives operate and how you garner value from derivatives. And for us, personally, for me, the realization came from looking at my own parents, where they are old now. They've taken their pension, they're at home, they've got access to funds, but when they go to the trusted institutions and they look for products, they tend to be boxed into a corner of being fed products that they don't understand, they don't like, and then they just end up keeping that money in cash on hand. And for me, I was looking to create investment products that would alleviate that pressure and really be a lot more inclusive, And when looking at it really on an overall basis, the fact that we've created minimums of 500 Rand to start investing, that has fundamentally changed it, right? Because for someone, it doesn't feel like a far-off dream. Because what I've realized is a lot of people had linked investing to having a lot of money. So you need a lot of money to start investing, which is a myth. It's not true. You can literally start investing with 500 Rand. So for us through the business, there also is an element of having to educate, having to create a realm of making investment information more accessible, educating around the products we are bringing to market, but also just making the investment in itself accessible to anyone and everyone.
So a partnership, especially starting a business together, can be very tricky. So the dynamic between you and Kagiso, what are your personalities like? Who's the serious one and who's the one who's slightly playful? And how do you two manage conflict or disagreements when it comes to the business?
Yeah. I think our personalities are very, very different. And that's worked for us. If you have the same people that think the same way running a business, for me personally, just in my view, that's potentially going to cause a problem down the line. So for us, we were lucky enough that when looking at our personalities, we were very different. I tend to be the more structured, serious, there has to be a plan, what are we actually doing type in the business. And he tends to be the more, the world's our oyster, let's do it, let's try it, we'll figure it out down the line, And I think we've gotten to a point where we leverage off each other. And 5 years into this thing, I've seen certain aspects of me rub off on him and certain aspects of him rub off on me, which is actually quite interesting. I remember, just to give you a practical example, I remember we were having a discussion and it was just around a decision we needed to make in the business. And normally I'm the one who will be like, nope, this is not going to work. We need to think of it in a different way. And he's normally like the yes person. Yes, it's going to work. In the specific meeting, I was like, yes, this is going to work from get-go. We can make it work. It's possible. And he was the no guy. He was like, nope, it's not going to work. And we laughed in that moment because we were just like, wow, we've actually swapped positions, you know? So it's just very interesting. And starting a business with a partner for me is a very sensitive thing that when making the decision you can't overlook. You need to make sure that it is the right person. You guys have complementing personalities, and more than anything else, the vision, mission, and goal of what you're starting is aligned. Because through my years of being an entrepreneur and running a business, I've seen it all. I've met partners who it started off great and it collapsed down the line. And for me, I think what's worked for us really, really well is the fact that we were completely aligned from day one in terms of what we're trying to achieve with SV Capital, but also because we are so fearless in bringing our opinions to the table, it always makes for a very intriguing conversation. So it's never a decision that's made haphazardly and we did not put any thought process into that decision. It's always a decision where we've discussed it in detail, we've slept on it, we've thought about it, and by the time we're executing, we've both gotten to a point where you've aired any of your reservations, and it's on the other person to make sure that they've dealt with your reservations. And if it's a green light from both of us, then the idea or the proposal, whatever it is good to go. So yeah, I think from my side, I've been very fortunate to be able to start a business with Kagiso, and 5 years in, I mean, we've built SV Capital into a vision that we didn't know it could amount to. And for us, I mean, opportunities are endless. The world is truly our oyster, and this is just the beginning.
All right. So, I mean, if you had to advise your younger self, given everything that you know now, given everything that you know now and how everything has turned out, what would you advise your younger self?
Wow. So I think I would say to myself, my younger self rather, that your dreams are valid. And that's really knowing what your full potential is, understanding what you're trying to achieve, and knowing that nothing can stop you once you set your mind to it. And I think the second piece of advice would be, don't be afraid to try. Like, in trying, you will learn so many things. It will make you smarter, wiser, stronger. And really, when you're trying, there is a likelihood that you're going to fail. But in failing, that's where comes the biggest amount of learning and growth, So it's just being willing to put yourself out there, try, fail, and you learn your lessons and you continue moving forward.
Wow, that's really amazing, because I mean, I think I'd also say that to my younger self, like, take more risks. I mean, I remember in our earlier conversation, you said you took a lot more risks, and I wish I had that back then. Although I tell myself that, I mean, I'm still quite young, so I've got a lot of runway still to take those risks and not be afraid of failing. So that's really been great, and this conversation has been amazing, so thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome. That is Ayanda Majola, who is the CEO of SV Capital. Thank you so much for tuning in, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And I can't wait to share the next episode with the next guest who's just as phenomenal. Thank you for tuning in.